Okay, we are live streaming. I am going to call the meeting to order. At this time, I'd like to remind council and municipal staff that this meeting is being live streamed to the public. All council meetings are also recorded. Recordings will be available to the public on the township's YouTube account. Physical attendance of the public at this meeting is restricted due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This meeting is held electronically under Bylaw 2020-70 to amend Procedural Bylaw 2018-117 pursuant to Section 238 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended. And we will start with our First Nations land acknowledgement. As we gather today, I would like to acknowledge on behalf of Council and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history. And we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. All right, we will move to the adoption of the agenda. Now, there are some amendments, Council. There was an oversight on delegations. We have a delegation. 5.1 will be Mr. Aaron Cope, and he's here regarding item 16.1 in your package, which is Bylaw 2021-111. I would also request that Council consider moving item 12.1.1, which is the vaccine policy, testing requirements, and return to work policy, to become item 18.1 after the in-camera session. In part, this is because it would be a recommendation to council. It's currently in the standing committee portion of our agenda, and it would not be able to be implemented for at least 2 weeks after the regular council meeting occurs later this month. As well, I would like to add an in-camera item, which would be the 12.1.1 vaccine policy testing requirements return to work policy. The reason for adding that is in regards to personal information about an identifiable individual. There is some information that I feel it's really important that council have that will assist them in making decisions in regards to the vaccine policy. And with being a small municipality with a fairly small staff complement, the discussion that will need to occur generalizing the numbers that will be affected could possibly lead to the public being able to identify someone. So we really do need to ensure we're protecting the privacy of our employees. And I think that is the best way to do it. And then after we're done that, we're able to come out and have a public discussion about the vaccine policy and the document that was provided to you. So those are the changes to the agenda that I'm recommending. And the recommendation would be that the council and committee agenda for Tuesday, February 1st, 2022 be approved as amended. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulist. All those in favor? And that's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interests this morning?
None here.
Okay, I'm not seeing any. Now, I am noticing that Councillor Poplinski is connecting to audio, so he should be joining us momentarily. I would like to give him an opportunity to respond to that question. Councillor Poplinski, thank you. I'm glad you were able to connect.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. We can't see you.
Okay, well, that's probably good. I thank God I have the old iPad. I dug it out and got it warmed up, and it's now receiving, and great difficulty with the other machine.
Okay, so is there any way we can get video? Ah, we just got video.
There we go.
Okay, so we can see you as well. I just asked if is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest. So I wanted to give you a chance to respond to that.
No None at all.
Okay, thank you. All right, this morning, as I did note, we amended the agenda. We do have a delegation. It's Mr. Aaron Cope in regards to item 16.1, which is bylaw 2021-111 on today's agenda. Welcome, Mr. Cope.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm not, this is my first time going through this, so I'm not sure what I need or don't need to do, so to speak. But I think, well, again, hi, Silas.
Okay, did you want Mr. Lerbetsky to just introduce the subject, just so that, because he has a handle on that. Silas, you seem to be muted. A handle on the subject matter, but technology is escaping us. Oh.
It's funny, I've been clicking on it and it does not want to release. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will just give a quick synopsis, makes it a lot easier for everybody to understand. My apologies to council. I was the one who inadvertently forgot to place the parties in the delegation portion. That's what happens when there's so much happening all at once before an agenda package is being put together. So Mr. Cope and Ms. Smart have applied for the closure and acquisition of the Shoreline road allowance in front of their property. Once the notice was posted, two parties came forward having concerns about the shoreline being closed, that they were utilizing access to Pog Lake via Crown land and over the municipal road allowance to a beach located in the vicinity of this closure. So long story short, there were numbers of email exchanges. The other, Mr. Cope, then decided to intervene and offered to each of the parties to show them on the ground what the actual situation was. They are not abutting owners, as I say. The only abutting owner was the Crown land, and I had no objections or concerns from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry with this closure. So I think the applicant made a very conservative approach to the closure. It could have been a straight line projection from his property, but he angled I guess it's the south limit. I'm trying to get my bearings here. Southeast limit of the proposed closure, which does not take into consideration possibly the nicer or the area of the beach that is being utilized. And I think I provided colored aerial photographs of that to council, so you can have a general knowledge of that. So one of the parties, after meeting with Mr. Cope, had no concerns, withdrew their concern from me. So that was not even mentioned to council. But Ms. Skraba still pursued, and just this morning I received 2 emails where she couldn't attend the meeting, and I did forward those 2 emails to everyone so that you have those. So other than that, I think I can just turn it over to Mr. Cope. He can just explain anything further that I may have not been aware of. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cope.
Yeah, thank you, Silas. And I'd like to commend you on all your help with this process. As I said, I've never been through it. So dealing with the township and everybody that I have dealt with already has been extremely helpful. So exactly what Silas has mentioned, I've spoken to both of the neighbors. I've explained actually where the survey pins are and what the property encompasses, and nobody seemed to have an issue with it. So, I don't really have much more to say on that. They seem to be happy. I'm happy. We've only been there a year, and I want to make sure that everybody in my, everybody that shares the same area that I do is going to be happy with us, and we're happy with them, and we all get along, right? Enjoy the lake that everybody else gets to. So.
Okay, thank you, sir. Does council have any questions for Mr. Cope? We are doing 3rd reading of this bylaw today. Okay, so I'm assuming that it was between our 1st and 2nd reading and the 3rd reading that the issue arose, that concerns were expressed by your neighbors, but it seems that you've through showing them exactly where the property is that the shoreline is that you wish to acquire, and that it is differentiated from the public part that they normally use and didn't want to lose access to, which is
Correct.
a little
Correct.
beach part that
Yeah.
has hopefully resolved most of the concerns.
Yeah, I guess in a nutshell is what I proposed and what the reality were different, right? In what they actually surveyed. Would have I liked a straight line to go to the water? Absolutely. But when I spoke to the surveyor, and I don't remember exactly what it was just the rules of surveying came into play, and that was the line that he has to abide by. So, but the documents that the neighbors got or saw doesn't show that. It shows that it's a straight line. So I understood their concern, but I showed them exactly the pins that are there and what it is, and they don't lose anything. I don't lose access of it. I just don't own it. And so everybody's happy. So.
Okay, great. Any further comments or questions for Mr. Cope? Okay, I think we're all good. I'm really pleased that you were able to work this out with your neighbors, and hopefully we can get this completed for you today.
Perfect. Well, thanks very much, and I'll vacate.
Okay, thank you very much for coming and speaking to us.
Okay, have a great day. Thanks very much.
You too.
Bye now.
Okay, so that completes our delegations. We're now moving into the council and committee portion of the agenda. All recommendations from the standing committees are recommendations to council and are pending the approval of council at a subsequent meeting. Our first standing committee is Operations, Roads and Waste Management, and normally that would be Chair Bromwich, but he is unable to attend today due to a personal reason, so I will chair on his behalf. Under operations, we have a municipal report, Hazardous Waste Days 2022, and is Mr. Kuchkowski here? There he is. Did you want to speak to this report, Hillary?
Sure, if you would like. Good morning.
Good morning.
To you, Chair. I'm just looking on my other computer. I have technical difficulties here too. So I just got confirmation this morning from BLR. They're totally, they want to join for the July 16th date for the Joint Hazardous Waste Day. So that's wonderful. It's good timing this year. We want to get it out in the tax bills, the 2 dates. And the second one is August 27th, same as before. It's good to get out early so we can track or get these dates tacked down. And we have the 2 of them booked tentatively. So the resolution is as it reads: initiate 2 household hazardous waste dates. And the dates are confirmed, July 16th and August 27th.
Okay, thank you. I guess, Sue, did you want to read the recommendation then? Or did you want to amend it to include those dates? I'm putting her on the spot.
No, I was just trying to unmute. So yes, no, we'll just leave it at the 2 dates, only because the report states July 17th, and he got confirmation for July 16th. So I'd like to confirm that.
Okay.
So if I may read the recommendation as it was, that council and committee recommend to council to direct staff to initiate 2 household hazardous waste events in 2022, with dates to be determined on the availability of the service provider, and that 33,000 be added to the 2022 waste disposal budget 151217704009 HHWD.
Okay, could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulis. Is there any discussion on the recommendation or any questions for Mr. Kuchkowski on the report? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. All right, we don't have any other correspondence or information or unfinished business, do we, in regards to roads?
Uh, no, I believe not.
All right, then with that, we'll move to the next committee. Now we have nothing under operations, water, wastewater, and facilities on the agenda. Is there anything that needs to be discussed? Chair, I'll just ask you, was there anything that you needed on your agenda that was missed? Any new business?
No,
Unfinished
true,
business?
Madam Chair. I didn't get anything on it. I think we're good to go.
Okay.
For unless Madam CEO has something that just came in, but I have nothing.
Oh, I
Thank you.
think through the chair that because our January meeting was mid-month, so we don't have any updates.
Okay. All right. So we'll move then on to fire and protection and emergency management, and I'll turn it over to Chair Poplinski.
I have misplaced my agenda, part of my agenda here this morning, and all this confusion about trying to get hooked up. And I'm sort of hooked up here, and it's probably over at another location in my office here. So I'm sorry, I'm working with nothing. I haven't anything in front of me. So
if I may assist, Chair Poplinski, I can call out the reports in the order that they're in on the agenda. Will that assist?
that would certainly help. Thank you.
Okay. So item 9.1.1 is the fire department activities. And I believe we do have Corey on if you wanted to speak to that.
Okay, the first thing is in the municipal report is the P38 proposed propane distribution facility is going to be located roughly about 1 kilometer east of Barry's Bay along Highway 60. Doing my background research and to assist with the moving forward with all the requirements, I have forwarded information to the Renfrew County Building Department and the Planning Department. The Ontario Regulation 21101 propane storage and handling. Questions for the TSSA for the propane distribution facilities. The Ontario Fire Marshal Communication 2014 propane storage and handling. The evacuation and blast zone radius, which was completed by P38's engineer that they hired for the company. I've also completed an NFPA 58 fire department response capabilities, which is a requirement for P38 to hand over to TSSA for their application to give a license for that facility. That's where we're sitting at the moment. There have been no decisions made on it and for approvals, but we're still in the beginning stages of approvals for the proposed P38 propane distribution facility on Highway 60.
I'm not sure how to, I can't see the chair, so I'm not sure how to just ask respectfully if he would like me to just chair in his absence, but I'm assuming someone needs to. Because there may be questions from council on this subject, so maybe I'll just step in his absence and ask, are there any questions for the fire chief on the P38? Okay, I'm not seeing any, and I guess I'd just like to know process. Is this something that will be coming to council for a decision?
It will be coming to council for decision once we move forward with the rest of the information. First, we're going to get back as approvals from 3 other agencies, and including myself, which I'll have to go to the fire marshal's office to make sure all the requirements are made. That could take between 4 and 6 months to hear back. So we're waiting on that process. That's what the NFPA 38 or 58, I mean, was required for the first part of the TSSA requirement for licensing. They have to review my capabilities of, which is a hazmat only. I mean, hazmat awareness only for our fire department. We're not a technician, so that's part of the information that was required by TSSA to see if they'll even allow a license for this. So I say it takes 4 to 6 months for TSA to review. And as we get the information, it will be eventually brought to council.
Okay, is it a council decision whether or not to approve this? This is what I don't know. Maybe Mr. Lerbetsky, could you just enlighten us? Oh, and you're muted.
I keep clicking on it and it doesn't want to release. Thank you, Madam Mayor. It must be something with the weather today. Everybody's experiencing difficulties. Just to give you a synopsis, this is an application for a site plan agreement with the installation of P38 propane facility. And it is currently under review by all different departments, including the fire department, MTO, and TSSA. This is not going to be a public meeting. There is no requirement. The current property is zoned appropriately, so there is nothing really that falls under the planning act that requires a public meeting to be heard. We as staff have to go through all the concerns before the site plan agreement is presented to council in the form of a bylaw that it accommodates all the requirements. Now, we have had 3 complaints, or people became aware of this development, and it is currently being handled by a solicitor on behalf of Welk Electric. And I just saw an email this morning. I believe the solicitor is working on preparing some presentation to council, because he was requesting all of council's email addresses, and maybe the CAO can confirm that, because that was an email that was forwarded to you, Sue. Is that correct?
He requested council emails. He didn't specify for what purpose.
But that is just knowing where it's coming from, I think so, just that council is aware. But right now there is no public meeting scheduled, no requirement for one. What happens is that the site plan agreement, once completed, if it is satisfactory to all the different departments, that will be presented to council in the form of a bylaw, and that is where council makes the decision whether to enter into the site plan agreement with the proponent, which is P38. So that's just, as I say, a general synopsis of this. This has been going on for months, but had not been brought to council's attention because there was no need to at this point. Mr. Quaid's report was presented just to make council aware. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I thought we had our chair back, but apparently he's not available at the moment yet. All right, so that's just for council's information. Chief, did you want to continue with your report?
Okay, next thing is the personal protective equipment. We received N95 masks and isolation gowns for the fire department through a fire program through the Ontario Fire Marshal's office, which it costs us absolutely $0 to keep our firefighters protected. We received 440 masks. We received 20 isolation gowns. So that program's in place till the end of March 2020. So if we go through the masks and get low, they will replenish them. Same with the gowns at zero cost to the fire department. The province will absorb the cost for that.
Okay, any questions on that? Okay, good to know. Good to know that they're providing that level of protection for our firefighters. I guess proceed with the next item.
Next item is Firefighter Certification. This came up 4 years ago when this council first came into office. It's now came back, and the Ontario government is bringing back mandatory certification for firefighters. It will start to take place as of January 2026 is when the mandate where we're going to have to be certified, all firefighters, back the same way it was. I haven't got a whole lot of information on it as of yet. I have a meeting tonight at 7 p.m. with the Ontario Fire Marshal's office. They're supposed to give us more details on exactly how this is supposed to take place, how we're supposed to get certified, the costs. Hopefully that's what's going to come up. And I have a meeting with the Renfrew County Fire Chiefs on February 23rd to discuss this, to try and get one voice again with the Ontario Fire Chiefs Association to say, this isn't going to work in rural areas. It's like a huge burden. We're going to lose firefighters, and the cost is going to be astronomical. So as I get more information, I'll pass it along, but that's what I've heard as of January 19th. It just dropped out of the air. We weren't expecting it. We never heard any rumors of it, and all of a sudden the Fire Chiefs Association gives a heads up. So that's where that sits at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Chair Poplinski, did you want to chair from this point on?
I'm sorry, I have no papers in front of me, so I cannot proceed. I'll have
Okay.
somebody else that has the information. And the major confusion trying to get hooked up this morning. I've been trying since 8 o'clock this morning to hook up, and So it's a very frustrating experience. And as I say, I've been running from around here trying to get hooked up on the iPad, which I am, but I don't have the papers, which I have to go back and retrieve. So if you could do that, I would be thankful. Thank you.
Okay, not a problem. I wanted to ensure I wasn't trotting on your toes because I could see you there.
Extremely frustrating morning.
I understand. Okay, so then if you don't mind, I'll just continue to chair the meeting while you're getting sorted with what you need to do. All right, any questions or comments from council on firefighter certification? Okay, I'm not seeing any. I did go on the environmental registry and download the information, including the proposed draft regulation. Honestly, Chief, it's very difficult for me as a member of the, a person, not a someone who's highly educated in firefighting, et cetera, and so forth, to understand the document and what the actual requirements are. But I think it's really important that you look at what they're asking. I'm sure you will understand, the items they're saying that are needed for each and every level of response by a firefighter. They're separating out exterior attack versus interior attack, auto extrication. So there's like a huge table of requirements, like pages of it. And if you haven't got it, I would certainly, I'll email it to you. I'd like you to take a look at it because we have only until I think February 28th to respond on the environmental registry. And that's our first opportunity to comment on the proposed regulations. I think it's very important that we do. It would also be really helpful if the Renfrew County Fire Chiefs were all on the same page about firefighter certification and what they want to see happen, even if that's just maintain the status quo. I mean, it's challenging for us as municipal representatives to get out there and fight for something if our fire chiefs are on different, have different positions. So I know you'll be attending that meeting. If it's humanly possible, stress to them that they need consensus about what it is they want to see and what it is they don't want to see, because then we can start to lobby the government to address the issues we know we're going to have with this. And unfortunately, I think if I remember correctly, this is supposed to come into effect July 1st this year. The actual dates for implementation where it's required start in about 2026, according to the draft. But the regulation will be approved by the beginning of July. So we really do have to get on to this, and it may require more than, like letter writing or resolutions. It's going to require some work. So it's super important that we know what our fire chiefs feel would be the best way to proceed. And as I said, that we're all on the same page. And I do appreciate the work you do in this.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have reviewed the requirements that the fire marshal did set out. I read them yesterday. I read them again this morning. They are very technical. I understand every bit of it. What it's bringing us right down to is we're going to have to be the same as the city fire department, the exact same training. We do meet the requirements under the NFPA for most of the firefighters that we do have at currently. It's going to be the new recruits are going to be hit like a boot camp. It will be expensive. It'll be hard to keep people. It already is kind of a part-time job as it is with requirements for between calls and training. It's going to put a lot more pressure on the firefighters we do got. So, and the chiefs through Eastern Ontario and the Renfrew County Chiefs Association are all on the same page. We're emailing back and forth every day, 4 or 5 times a day, getting the same consensus as you said, one voice, and everybody has the same thing across the board and talk to the government about this because it is going to be a major impact when it does come into effect. And like you said, the regulation comes into effect July 1st, fully implemented as of 2026. And then the second part of it, like the more specialized equipment, like ice water rescue, high angle rescue, all that they're going to require us to do, which we don't do currently, comes into 2028. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of questions to be asked. When I do hear a few more answers, I will get it to you. So, and same with the cost, because right now it's going to range from $290 administration fee to $1,400 per fire department per administration fee, depending on how well trained we are and how many records we can provide as of right now. That's the initial cost.
Does that include training costs?
No, that's just the cost of the town municipality to give to the government for them to give us an audit.
Ooh, okay, Councillor Wilmer.
Chief, I was just wondering, there's obviously political pressure to get this done. Where is the pressure coming from? Is it from the city fire departments, from the unions that want this right across the province?
It seems to be coming from the province itself. You talk to the city fire departments because they got like some city got composite, same as all city water. They're against it also because they run volunteers and careers. So no, it seems to be coming from the government itself.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments from council? Okay, thank you for that, Chief. And I do really appreciate the work. I know we worked together to address this once already. And here we are again. So it's a path we've walked before. We'll walk it again. All right, please proceed.
Okay, the next thing is firefighter dispatching, the upgrading our the equipment for the CAC center. At the chief's meeting on December 8th, brought up for discussion. This has been going on for now 7 years, trying to figure out what they're going to do with the equipment. Has been obsolete for quite a few years. It's now 22 years old. It's completely obsolete. It's hard to get. It's an analog system. Over the last 2 years, the communications committee has tried to speak with the county media, even Zoom meetings, whatever, to try and get some kind of foothold or something. We've heard nothing. So they're asking if any at the county level, has anybody heard anything or any discussion at the county level to upgrading or changing or any options been discussed in the last couple of years? But we haven't heard nothing. So yeah, they asked every chief to go to their council and ask if anybody's heard it at the county level at this point.
Okay, thank you, Chief. So I sit at County Council. In 2022, in our most recent budget, the county budgeted $100,000 for fire services to provide communications to the lower tier fire departments. The lower tier municipalities are billed for that cost, and we pay for that service. A number of years ago, there was some discussion at county about investing in new communications infrastructure for this service. Although some county councillors were pushing for the upgrade, it went nowhere and it was seen as too expensive. It was probably going to end up being over $1 million or more dollars. I'm unaware of any plans to upgrade the existing infrastructure in the near future. So this hasn't really been discussed. I just know that the standard amount that is usually budgeted to provide the service was budgeted and will be charged back to the municipalities. I would note to council in our operational review that we just received that it includes a recommendation to switch to a fire dispatch provider with skilled NFPA trained communications specialists. Now the cost to do so is significantly higher than what we're paying now. It's vitally important to have the Renfrew County fire chiefs on the same page about the fire dispatch and communications services that they need so that we're all again pulling in the same direction. Should Madawaska Valley make a decision to go in a different direction and upgrade to that better service, it will be a significant cost to our taxpayers, but we do need to ensure we're all pushing in the same direction on this as to whether or not the County of Renfrew should be upgrading that equipment and continuing to provide the service or not. Now, please note, if the county invests a couple of $1 million in this equipment, we will be paying for it. There's no doubt about it. That's what will happen. The bill will be passed on to us. So it is a challenge. It is a problem. Chair Poplinski?
Yes.
Are you in good shape now?
I think so.
Okay, can I hand it back over to you so you could possibly chair any discussion on the fire dispatch?
Well, I was trying to get organized here. I was sort of listening in, and I think that Corey has gone right down the list, and I'm sure there's more that he wishes to speak about. So I'm just wondering, are there any questions or comments from members of council that may want some clarification on anything that's been spoken about? Obviously, I don't, of course, I can't see other people's hands with this limited capacity I've got with the little iPad here. So perhaps, Mary, you can, if there is someone that's got their hand up, if you could alert me.
Okay, Councillor Wilmer has his hand up.
Yeah, I'm not really sure on this, but the recommendation in the operational review that said that we should look at upgrading to a different system, obviously will cost more. Is that system similar to what Armpire switched to? Because I noticed you mentioned Armpire's gone up from 10,000 to 40,000 in the report.
This Councillor Wilmer, what Armpire did is they moved to Brockville Fire.
Okay.
They were paying Armpire was paying $10,000 a year to Brantford County for their services. It's now gone to $40,000 a year for the NFPA call. So Brockville is an actual fire service, like they do fire dispatch, don't do ambulance dispatch. They are NFPA recognized, and that's the way Armpire went with that way. They said they get clear, concise information. They said they tell where the hydrants are, they tell where the next intersections are, and they update as the vehicles are responding, what vehicles go behind, because that's what the NFPA code is. They're the only fire department in the entire county that pulled out of using the CAC center at a Renfrew. So that was Armpire's decision at the chief at that time. So I'm not really sure why he went that way, but that's what happened there. But it is at least 4 to 5 times the cost to have an actual fire dispatch unit there. We are looking at Northern 911 to give us a presentation so I can hand it over to council sometime hopefully in this month, and then see what their costs are, because I know south of Gonk and Extras uses Northern 911 for dispatching theirs. So does all of Huntsville, that area, using Northern 911 for a fire dispatch. So we're trying to find out the cost to see if it's better to go that way as opposed to upgrading the equipment for the county, because it is getting obsolete and sometimes it's hit and miss. It's been pretty good for the most part, but we're just making sure we don't get caught where we can't get parts for a major item. Right now, so far, we've never had that problem. We got spare parts in stock in the county, but just in case that happens, we're trying to be proactive.
The service that Northern 911 provides, is it similar to the quality of service that Armpire gets through Brockville?
We're waiting to find that out. We haven't heard anything. We've in discussions with that. Other municipalities that do use it say they do provide a very good service. It's the same as what Brockville does. They're a designated fire dispatch for their section. They do ambulance, police, and fire, but they do have fire dispatches designated specifically for that under their program.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Poplinski, I don't see any other hands up.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Love, and we'll struggle along with this current situation. Anyway, thank you, Corey, and it looks like there's a whole lot of discussion still to be had, and I'm just wondering if we could, at the earliest convenience, because of budgetary needs and so on, and issues, if you could bring a report back as soon as possible on some of the things that we've discussed and some of the things that have been recommended. I think we have to keep always, and I know you do, it's the safety of the personnel and so on. So hopefully if we could move on and we can expect a report back on this major issue. Okay, if that's possible.
Most
so if you would like to, there's no further questions, then maybe we could proceed with the next item.
Okay, next items on next generation 911. The Ontario government is currently replacing its fleet net communication system with a digital system in 2023. It's called Next Generation 911. It'll be used for all police and ambulance agencies, including any MTO, MNRF, or any other Ontario government agency. Under the current fleet net system, we could not use their towers or their repeaters or anything. Under the new Next Generation 911, there is a block of frequencies that fire departments throughout Ontario can use and may possibly be offered, but we have not heard what the cost of that's going to be for us, including the policing costs for upgrading of towers or ambulance dispatch. That has not been provided at all to us whatsoever. But we're waiting to hear that as much as soon as we get a presentation for that, I'll pass that information along also. So that's another unknown for the Ontario government for 2023 for costing. Like I said, so that's part of the communication, I guess, with the fire dispatch and how it's all going to work out in the long run. But it will affect us somewhat with the policing and ambulance for their new towers that are going up with a digital system.
Any questions on that particular item by council, members of staff? I
Okay.
don't see any. Once again, I'm limited. I don't see anyone else. So,
There are no hands up.
okay, thank you. Would you like to proceed, Corey?
Okay, the George Vanier rink, school rink was flooded. They took 6,000 gallons of water over to flood the outdoor rink for the school. It's school said thank you. The kids been using it well, so that went well. The in-kind donation. It was good training for the firefighters for the tanker, so that went well.
Okay.
The next thing is the SCBA bottles that were posted on Gov Deals. Both of them were sold. The Scott bottles were sold for $100, which is what we were hoping to get to a fellow in Minden. The MSA bottles were sold to a company in Alberta for $200. So that stuff's been sold as opposed to taking it to the landfill. So that worked out well.
Chair, just a question on that. It's the mayor. Just to Corwin, does the buyer or the seller pay for shipping on those
They
bottles?
take care of everything. We get
Okay.
$200. That's just ours. The shipping's theirs. The taxes up on top of that. Same with the selling fees, the commission for the Gov Deals. It's up and beyond the $200. The $100 we get is ours. The $200 we get, so whatever we get for a minimum price for an auction is our money. And all the other costs are up and beyond that to go to the buyer.
I'm really glad to hear that, because if we'd had to ship them, I imagine we would have spent $100. Okay,
No,
thank
no,
you.
we were ahead of $100 and $200.
Great. I don't see any other hands, Chair.
Thank you. Maybe we could proceed then to the next item.
Okay, we still got that old 2002 pumper that's down in the yard too. Battle Shield looked at it. There's no title, and from the company that he had owned it before, they're a little nervous touching it, and because of the age of it. So that the deal fell through. I tried a couple of scrap yards. They've never got back to me. I talked to 3 different ones throughout the province, 3 in Ontario. They said they're interested, but they never get back. So I'm asking, could we possibly post a truck on Gov Deals for about $2,000 as parts only? It doesn't require a title. Just get it out of the yard, get it over here, and get something back for us. It may go to higher 2,000, but at least start at 2,000. That's what trucks are starting at, that kind of truck online. So I'm asking the permission to deem that surplus and to get it out of here and hopefully get that cleaned up and put behind us if I can get that.
Yes, if I agree with you totally, and if there's no further objections or comments from other members of council, I would proceed that I would suggest that you do that, if that's okay with council.
Okay, I don't see any hands up now. Just a question for myself. Do we need a resolution to declare it surplus? Okay,
Yes, please.
so Chair, I guess then I would so move that we declare the Battle Shield fire truck surplus and proceed to post it on Gov Deals for $2,000.
I'll second that motion.
Councillor Wilmer had his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Can't see anybody.
Sorry, I was just voting in favor of it, of
Okay.
the motion.
All right, so
No,
So-
if there's no further comments, then
did you want to call the vote, Chair, and I'll let you know?
okay. Yeah, so all in favor? Yes,
Okay, and all 3 members of council have voted for it, so it
thank you.
is
Motion
carried.
You want to proceed, Corey?
Okay, next, the fire call breakdown has been pretty good so far this year. We only had 2 chimney fires in the month of January. That's the only 2 calls we had, one for the south station, one for the north station. Other than that, it's been going pretty good. Training's been going on steady. So that's the end of this report.
Any questions or comments from other members?
There are no hands up.
Okay, I have a comment, Corey, about the assisted lifting. And that was something that I raised at the last meeting. And apparently we had 6 situations where we had to send 2 firemen with a fire truck to help people carry bodies or carry patients. And this seems to be a trend that's, from what I understand in my memory, if it serves me well, there was an issue with it back quite a few years ago. And the department at the time under direction of council was that they would no longer provide that service. And I think that this is like a creeping situation where we're going to be taking on a whole lot of extra expense, because I also understand it's not only driving a very expensive vehicle to the site, which they need to do, but also there's a point system where they get paid. So it's costing, it's costing your fire department money to provide that service. And I think it's time that we took a little harder stand on this. We want to help, but at the same time, we saw the attempt to download a lot of the service onto our fire department in many of these aspects. And I think it's time that we stood up firm and said no more. Okay. I'd like to hear other council's members' opinion on it. You're muted there, Marilov.
So sorry, Councillor Wilmer has his hand up.
Okay, great. Yes, Councillor Wilmer.
I was just going to say I agree with what you're saying, Councillor Poplinski, and no, I agree completely.
Okay, if there's no further comments.
Councillor Schulist has his hand up.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to clarify too, is I'm definitely would support what you're saying too, Councillor Popinski. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. If
Okay.
there's no further comments, maybe we can have staff spend a little more time on it and see if we can come up with a message that we can get to the government that no, we can no longer provide that service unless we're going to be compensated. Okay.
Will do.
Okay, and if you could proceed with your report.
Okay, that was the end of the fire report. I'm over to bylaw activities. First thing is bylaw activities for 2022. I've had 2 barking animal complaints, and I've had 2 parking complaints for people who are blocking snow plows from removing snow in town. So one ticket was issued for a parking violation. The other was given a warning. Because the first time we give a one-time warning, the second time we give a ticket. That's usually happened on the main street a couple places because the plows can't remove the snow. Other than that, it's been pretty good. Dog complaint, that's a ongoing neighbor dispute in a certain part of the township. We've been out there 3 times to one side, 3 times to the other side. The neighbors don't get along, so it's an ongoing issue. A ticket has been issued for that because the dog had trespassed a number of times, and I give 2 warnings first, so that's the way that's been dealt.
Any comments from members of council?
There are no hands up.
You? Okay, you can proceed, Corey.
Okay, that's next to the animal control and dog pound review. Attaches the fees for the Madawaska Valley Township and nearby municipalities. Bonshire Valley, it sounded noticed an increase of pound fees in 2022 because North Laguna Wilberforce had pulled out of the program. In the last 6 years, we've taken 6 dogs to the pound. 3 of the dogs have been actually picked up outside of Madawaska Valley and brought to the municipal office and dropped off. So we ended up stuck with them. So we had to take them to the pound at that point. But we don't take, in 2020, we never took a dog. Or 2021, the last dog was taken out in 2019. So the price of up in the Hastings Highlands, Bancroft area is about $9,000 a year for their pound fees. Ours is about $4,000. Renfrew, I believe, is around 45 or 105,000. So stick with Bonshire Valley's pound is probably a pretty good price, even though it is expensive. We don't use it that often. It is a good service. They have taken a step to make sure the dogs aren't euthanized. They're more adopted quicker. They hold them on a little longer. The fees are passed along to whoever the adoption person is, or if the owner comes and takes a claim, it doesn't add additional cost to the township. It's a $50 a day fee for looking after the animal, but that's passed on to the owner, not back to the township.
Any comments from anyone?
Chair, I'd like to ask some questions about this, please.
Please do.
All right. So Corwin, so we've only had six dogs in, what did you say, the last
6 years.
six years? So about a dog a year
That's right.
is our average. I know on page 25, you provided us with a comparison chart. So I want to understand the differences more clearly. So if we continue to use Bonnechere Valley, we will pay $4,800 annually,
Correct.
whether we take a dog or we don't take a dog.
That's correct.
And then if we take a dog, it will be $10 a day for up to 5 days. And that's recouped from the owner if they claim the dog.
Yeah, if not, it's whoever adopts the dog.
Okay. But only up to 5 days.
No, they've extended that now because they're looking for adoption. They work with OSPCA.
Okay.
So they either take the dog to OSPCA or they'll try a provincial adoption agency they have it hooked up with. I just found that out on Friday afternoon or Thursday afternoon. They got back to me. They said, so they hold a dog longer than that, but the cost, the $10 a day goes to whoever adopts it, is built into their adoption fees.
Okay. So the municipality is basically looking at the 4,800, which is what we will pay whether we take a dog or we take 10 dogs. We'll be paying the same fee.
That's correct.
All right. So you've given us some information about Petawawa OSPCA animal shelter. Now, this is where I need you to flesh this out a bit, because it's $375 per dog impounded, but there doesn't seem to be an annual fee that would be given that the municipality would pay. So if I look at us on average taking one dog a year, we're paying the $375 for the impounding. It then says $50 per day boarding fee, no maximum. I guess that's where I'm honing in on trying to understand. Does that mean that the OSPCA and Petawawa, you're paying them $50 a day if the dog could be boarded for 6 months if it wasn't adopted?
That's correct.
Is that where the challenge in that lies?
That's where the challenge comes in, that lies. That we pay that $50 a day till that dog either passes away on his own or is adopted.
Or the owner goes and gets it.
Or the owner goes and gets it.
So that's a bit challenging for us, because when I looked at it, I thought to myself, here's a set fee per dog, which honestly, if the owner went and got the dog, I would expect the owner should pay it. To me, it's very important that if you're using a service that you're paying for it. But that bit about $50 a day and the potential for it to extend long past 5 days, obviously, does make that a bigger risk than the set annual fee. So thank you for that clarification. That helps me to, support the recommendation that you've provided us. Thank you, Chair.
One of my questions, Corey, and perhaps you can help me with this, is there some idea as to the amount of fines levied in the case where dogs are running at large and various offenses under our current act? Is there any idea how much money we bring in every year on that?
It'd be less than $1,000, Councillor Poplinski. Depends on the dogs. If we usually catch them the first time, we give a warning.
Okay.
Usually the second time ends up being a ticket. And the tickets vary depending on whether they're trespassing. The tickets range from $90 to $305.
Okay. So do you foresee that with the amount of animals that we're having to deal with, that is something that we should consider, changing some fees and making it sort of pay for itself type of thing? The dog management?
I've just spoke to Silas. We are going to try and increase the fines to the province. That's where you start provincial offenses tickets. So we are going to increase the fines because $90 ticket doesn't even cover barely the cost to drive the Pembroke to drop ticket off to the POA court. So we are looking at increasing fines to sort of cover costs.
I'm just wondering if we could look at our whole bylaw, because, we had situations last year brought to my attention, I'm sure other council members were notified, where dogs were running all over some of the beaches down our way here, causing major even fights between people and biting people. I don't know if any fines are ever levied in those situations, but you know, at the time, I suggested we put up signs and prohibition signs, and it never happened. So I'm wondering if we need to have a bigger look at this and see if we can solve many issues with a little more planning and so on. So is that something that you would agree with?
Yeah, we could try that. I did attend the beaches at different times on different Saturdays, Sundays, some evenings. And when I did talk to some of the people down there, they said there was no dogs there. And the few people that did say they had a problem with a dog wouldn't identify the owner. So without identifying where the dog came from or the owner, or even give me a license plate, I didn't know who to get. When somebody does do something like that, yeah, the fines would have been levied, but it's to actually catch the person or something like that while they're doing the violation. But I don't know how many weekends I went out on Saturdays, Sundays, different times, mornings, afternoons, evenings. And a lot of people just say, no, they didn't see anything.
I totally appreciate you can't be there 24/7, but you know, dogs don't drive cars. So to leave a notice on the windshield, as someone suggested, is it may work in some cases, but you know, we do have an issue and it needs to be addressed. So thank you. Any other comments from council? I don't.
There are no hands up, Chair.
Thanks, Mayor Love. Okay, Corey, would you like to proceed?
Okay, and then the next thing is animal control officer. Due to the increased workload with the fire department, I'm advising council in the interim, municipal compliance officers asked to assist locating stray dogs when required. I'd keep the bylaw enforcement portion of things, but if the dog trespassing, like the actual writing of tickets or whatever, but if there's got a loose dog, we're asking that we can allow compliance officer to fill in and possibly respond to those calls if I'm already out on something else, if that's okay with council.
Good. Okay, any further questions or comments on that, council?
There are no hands up, Chair.
Oh, hands up. So that looks like it completes your report, Corey. Am I correct?
There's one other part, it's outstanding matters.
Okay, please proceed.
Okay, outstanding matters is back to the noise. Upon delegation to council in October 2021, staff is to bring a report back recommendations as it pertains to noise bylaw, changing the times, fine associated non-compliance for large gatherings, and licensing of events and large gatherings to notify officials. We've gotten a letter back from one of the people that did complain up in Jewelville Road. They're asking if council was going to do it, and if they're going to change anything. They asked me. I said I can't speak on behalf of council. They still want a curfew at 11 o'clock. They don't like the noise. They think there should be permits. They still think people should be able to have parties on their property. So I said I can't speak on behalf of council. So I'm just bringing it back to give you this information. This was sent to us. So to sort of, I guess, can review it or not review it, or how you want me to answer this person back at the moment. I don't know if you want a bigger discussion or how we want to address this.
Any comments from council?
I don't see any hands, Chair.
Yeah, this is a matter that certainly does require some attention, and I'm all in favor of having much further discussion about this, Corey. And I understand the frustration, the amount of time that it's taken from personnel to attend, and a feeling of not being able to do anything. So it's an issue that's probably going to raise its head again this year when the good weather comes. So hopefully before then we'll have something in place. So if we could go back to the drawing board and come up with something that we could have much larger discussion about. Would that make sense?
It would. That will fall into the next item I have on this line here. Councilor Polinsky sort of, they call draw it into like a big plan. What I'm going to present to you guys next. So
okay,
sort of all encompassing.
Okay, because so this is something we can anticipate within the next, before the next meeting.
Oh, I'm not sure, hoping to.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I know you have in that particular discussion, you had indicated the short-term rentals, the Airbnbs. Would you like to speak on that?
Okay, yeah, I've been researching the short-term rentals in the township. There's no regulation on short-term rentals, which is considered an Airbnb provincially or through the county or the municipality. They're short-term rentals. They're usually a cottage, somebody's home, a trailer, or a bunkie. They're not motels, hotels, or something like that, or bed and breakfast. They're a totally different thing. These are people just rent their properties out. I looked online, Airbnb just in Madawaska Valley alone, just our township, there's 68 Airbnbs. The only thing is, once we start to, now that I notified them, or if they have to regulate them, that opens a whole new can of worms, including building code violations if they're not set, fire separations. You need fire inspections every year. They need fire plans every year. It could possibly run into zoning issues. So I'm not quite sure how we're going to address this, but I do know there's 68 alone. That's not even looking on Facebook. And this is Airbnb alone. We got 68 of them. The town of Collingwood, or Blue Mountains, I should say, they have a regulation of $1,000 a year license fee. It's a $500 a year inspection fee between the building inspector and the fire chief. Huntsville is just similar. They charge a $500 a year fee to have an Airbnb. They charge $100 for the building inspector and $100 for the fire chief to do an inspection every year. And they are required under the Fire Act to be inspected every year, no different than a motel, hotel, or bed and breakfast. So I'm not sure how we're going to address this, because all people complain with the Airbnbs, and it comes to the noise thing and the complaints also, as are the extra the bylaw. It opens up a whole can of worms, taxation, assessments, you name it. Like, so I don't know quite how we're going to deal with this, or how we want to deal with it, or we don't, or wait for the province to see if they're going to regulate it. But if we start our own policy, I'm not sure how we're going to do it, or how we're going to add a whole lot of extra work and open a whole can of worms for everything. So that's just kind of what we're seeing with the Airbnbs at the moment.
So Corey, the suggestion of having the Ontario government do it, if they do it, they'll be looking for the money. I
Yes.
think that, I think we need to do something, and we need to do something soon. And I think the money should be then allocated for other services which we cannot get on regular property taxes. We're providing a lot of service to these people who are coming into town. They're spending time at the cottage, these Airbnbs, they're causing noise and complaints. You're sending personnel out, we're complaints from neighbors. And so we can't do nothing. I think we need to do something. I'd like to hear from other members of council on this.
Chair, Councillor Wilmer's hand is up.
Yes, please, Councillor Wilmer, if you'll.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, like the noise one before it, I think this is becoming a real problem, and I think there may be 68 listed on the Airbnb site, but there's probably many more than that out there. I know there are. But I think what we need to do, again, and as the operational review suggested, you know, to me, I can see all these problems, but what I need as a councillor is some ideas and suggestions brought forward that we can discuss on how to improve these and how we can fix it. And that's what I need to see. I need to see some recommendations so that we can work on these and try to find solutions to them. So just a thought, because I know these are problems and they're not going to get better. They're going to get worse as we, you know, the noise matters, as we get more and more people from the city coming in here. There's going to be more noise complaints. The Airbnbs aren't going away, and people expect different things. They expect to be able to party on the weekend when they come up, and they really don't care about their next door neighbors quite often. But there are other municipalities that have developed bylaw. You mentioned Blue Mountain. I know the city of Ottawa developed one because they were having problems. So it is something we need, that I think staff need to look at and bring back a report to us.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Wilmer. Any other comments?
Chair, Councillor Schulist would like to speak.
Yes, Councillor Schulz, you've got the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this is definitely something we have to definitely look into. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Wilmer. We need some recommendations. So, Chief, if you could go out there and find out, and maybe we could see some examples of, you know, what other communities are doing. But yeah, this is not going to correct itself. I think we need some good discussion, but I think we need something at our table that we can sort of, you know, go against sort of thing. So if you don't mind, you know, definitely if it was done before summer, because this is where the action happens. And so, yeah, I'm definitely going to see that there will be a positive if we go forward with this. Thank you.
I thank you, Councillor Schultz. I think we all agree that something needs to be done, and I think we're heading in that direction. But when you look at the suggestion that there's 68 that are well known, and if you're looking at in some places, if they are charging $500 to pay for the inspections, and that's a considerable amount of money down the road, and I think we'll have some control of it. So if we could encourage staff to come back with some recommendations on it, and in keeping with what Councillor Wilmer had said, I think I'd be very much in favor of that. So unless there's any further comments, then we'll proceed with that understanding.
Chair, could I speak to it, please?
Oh, yeah, please.
Okay,
Please
thank
do.
you. So I think that we need a very thorough report. I don't want to see something quick. I don't want to receive 3 or 4 different policies or licensing bylaws from different municipalities without also getting an analysis from our staff about how this would work or not work here. Because it's very challenging as members of council to receive a whole bunch of documents, and while they're great to have examples, unless we get good feedback from our staff, and this will cross more than just bylaw. This encompasses a number of different departments. So it does need to be interdepartmental feedback in this report. So I think it may be difficult to do this by the beginning of this summer, but I think we need to start the work. We also need to understand very clearly, it sounds great that somebody's getting $500 or $1,000 as a fee, but what are the costs going to be to the municipality? Is it going to require, these are just questions, I'm not saying it will, is it going to require another staff person? How will it impact you know, our current organizational structure? So this is a big step. It's probably going to anger any number of people who do use this to help pay for their cottages. I mean, that's a given. It also may not provide in the end the ultimate relief to the neighbors who endure the rental beside them, because there will be certain things that the municipality can do and there will be certain things that we can't do based on our own organization and what we can afford and what we can manage. So I think this does need a very deep dive, and I would hate to see it be rushed, because it does need to have had that input and discussion across departments. And so this may be something that our members of our senior leadership group, our managers, need to discuss thoroughly. It may have impacts on treasury, you never know. It may have impacts on, certainly it will on bylaw and on planning, so, and fire. So I would encourage that we do this once and we do it well, that we don't rush and then find ourselves constantly trying to adjust as we come up with, as situations arise that are causing us difficulties. But I definitely do support us taking a good, long, hard, and deep look at this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Love. I'm just going to comment, in all fairness to our existing hotels, motels, and resorts that are paying business tax. I think it's all in all fairness, and I think it is something that's long overdue. And it's somebody suggested we're going to have a lot more people coming and doing this. So I would, if there's no further comments, then I would ask staff to follow our suggestion and come back with a report. And I understand it will take some time because it does involve, but your suggestion about involving the senior staff, I think is a good one. And I think that would be a very good place to start. Okay. If there's no, yes.
Chair,
Yes,
the CAO has her hand up.
yes, Madam CAO.
Yeah, I just wanted to, if it was the end of the report, that I could read the recommendation to ensure that we appoint the animal control services. Did you want me to read the recommendation?
Yes, please.
To the chair? Okay. That through the chair, that council accepts the bylaw activities report as received, and that council accepts the bylaw enforcement officer's recommendation to proceed with the existing services for animal control with Bonnechere Valley Township.
Thank you. So everyone has heard that, and do we need a motion on that or a
Yes,
resolution?
please.
Okay, I can certainly move. And need a
Councillor
seconder.
Schulist has his hand up.
Okay, Councillor Schulist. Okay, and any further comments?
There are no hands.
Okay, so having no further comments, then motion is granted.
Can we vote, Chair?
Yes, please do.
Okay, so we're voting and everyone is in favor.
Yeah, so I could only see your hand, so, but I'm sure other ones. So, thank you. This is quite interesting, isn't it?
It's like
Okay.
being a seeing eye dog for someone.
Well, it beats smoke signals, so.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you. So if we could, I think, Corey, that's the extent of your report, is it?
There's one last little piece, Councilor Polinsky.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
It's the sea containers, bunkies, trailers, shoreline
Oh, yeah,
work, shoreline work, and encroachments on the municipal lands. As reported back in January, the council meeting, there was 46 sea containers, 40 trailers, 19 sleep cabin investigations in 2021, totaling 109 investigations. There's another issue now I see it's coming more and more. It's encroachment and work on shorelines and encroachment onto municipal property. We don't have a penalty or any kind of thing. We've so far I got 2 complaints this year, just in January, of people doing shoreline work. They've been discovered. We're doing other investigations. These people don't own it. There's a shoreline allowance around some of the major lakes in the area. So we somehow I talked to the planning department, the building department, and the compliance officer, and the CAO clerk. We got to come up with some kind of a thing and present back to council on how we're going to either address this, because you see more and more people encroaching on concessions, like shoreline allowances, township municipal roads without permission. Like, that's municipal property. That leaves us open to liability, and also we're doing shoreline work, which can damage it. That requires sometimes M&R permits. So we're hoping to have a workshop between the like you say, senior management to address all these issues and come up with some kind of a game plan with a possible bylaw if that's what's necessary. And like I say, increasing the penalties, looking at different ways of enforcement without costing the municipality a whole lot of extra money, but you get compliance with it. We're hoping for compliance more than penalties, but we gotta get people educated and come up with some kind of rules or some kind of penalty. Some people that just don't want to listen. Like I see a place down there, he had 160 feet of shoreline. He dug the whole thing out, put a retaining wall in, and built a bunkie on the edge of it. So we're dealing with that today with our compliance officer. That's an example of one of the things we found. So that we're hoping, how you say, hopefully by sometime maybe this month. I'm not sure if council's interested in attending it, but we are hoping to have a senior management meeting with a workshop, possibly in the Holiday J. Yakubuski Center, to keep social distancing. But we are hoping to sit down with all the department heads and come up with a game plan and present something to council.
thank you, Corey. Is there any comments from council?
There are no hands, Chair.
No hands? Well, I think everybody'd be interested. I know I am. And just keep us informed as you move along. And I think we need to. This is going to become even more prevalent. So I think we need to act. And let's put our heads together and come up with a good plan. So if there's no further comments, then thank you for your report. And obviously somebody's doing a good job in the fire prevention. It's nice to see. You know, it's sad when you see what's happening in other places across Canada and other places where the fires, especially this time of the year. So I think a lot of it starts with prevention, and you're doing a good job. So please continue. Thank you. That I think we've got. There's no unfinished business, or is there?
Chair, I did have a verbal update under 9.1.3.
Okay, please proceed.
So yes, so apologies for the verbal update. This was a there was a opportunity under Municipal Climate Resiliency Grant. It was offered through Intact. If you recall, we just briefly mentioned it. We were to look as a staff to see if there was anything that we could qualify for. As is the norm, the timeline was short and the project had to be shovel ready. The deadline was yesterday. Following discussions with the CMC and CMC alternate, I applied under both streams. I applied under the flood resiliency, under research readiness. As council is aware, staff will be promoting, and the operational service delivery supported the use of CGIS modules throughout departments. So I've applied for a digitized map, allowing us to quickly address the public proactively instead of reactively during or leading up to flooding emergencies. The CGIS module would allow for creating an online portal for residents to obtain property level flood risks information and have information that could be distributed to residents. It will allow us to also indicate where our hydrants are. I applied to go hand in hand with that under the wildfire resiliency stream. So I applied for 2 dry hydrants, one for the Cumbermere area with access to water, and one was a 5,000 gallon tank in an area within the township identified as higher risk for wildfire, designated by the fire chief, whereas he has identified we have a couple of areas that the location to water is fairly far. So the total application is for 42,900. So we will let you know how that fared out.
Thank you kindly. It's always good news when we can get a little bit of money. Thank you so
Fingers
much.
crossed. And that's the end of the correspondence.
Great, thank you. 9.2, there's correspondence and information. I don't see anything on indicated, and under unfinished business, there's nothing that I'm aware of. However, I can check and see if there is from any of the members.
There are no hands up.
No hands up, so we'll pass the gavel back to the mayor. And thank you for your patience. This has been a interesting morning.
Okay, thank you, Chair Paplinski. Our next committee is Recreation and Community Development, and I'll turn it over to Chair Wilner.
Thank you, Mayor Love. Okay, item 10.1. 1.1 is the Barry's Bay Recreation Committee update, and we have Hannah here, and Councillor Schulis is also our rep on that committee. So I'll ask Hannah if she has any comments. I think it's fairly straightforward. It really is dealing with the fact that they've lost a lot of members and they're trying to rebuild.
Yeah, exactly. They've been dormant for a few years and now they're back at it, which is great. They've been meeting monthly, I think twice now, and they're actively recruiting some new members. Right now there's 2, and I think they have a 3rd on deck, so that's great. One thing about this report is they don't currently have that 3-person minimum, so there is interest to have council support their new initiative to bring back the outdoor rink contest, which I believe was a big success last year. So that's one thing they were looking for support from council for. And then hopefully in the future, we won't have to formally have this kind of support because there'll be more than 3 members kind of officially on the team.
So we do have a motion on this. Councillor Schulis.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'm hoping that council will support this. Yeah, I get a lot of positive feedback for what's happening. I know that they kind of went dormant for a little while. A few people stepped down and so on. And the last couple of meetings we've had, and there really wasn't quorum. But we did make some decisions, especially this outdoor rink contest. And I really felt we should have, go and move forward with it because really it was successful. And they had asked me to talk to the celebrity judges, and in this case here, NHL alumni Larry Trader, and also Rodney Shute, and then of course the Pembroke Lumber Kings owner and coach Alex Armstrong, and they were really, really excited about doing it again. So we felt it was kind of time sensitive, but rules were sort of broken a little bit, but I think no money was being spent or approved or anything. So I really hope that the council does approve this. and hopefully they'll get a committee members in place, and then they'll be able to move forward with that. So thank you very much.
All right, are there, Mayor Love?
Thank you, Chair. Just in the recommendation itself, could we identify the name of the event that we are supporting in the absence of a quorum, just to be very clear? I think that's important. One other point, I noticed I think it was in the minutes, they talked about co-chairs. And I'd like someone to please check into the requirements for the executive of a committee of council, because I don't think co-chairs are recognized. Typically, in our municipal structure, we would use a chair and a vice chair, which is perfectly fine. But I would shy away from the concept of co-chairs. At least I would ask staff to verify if that's allowed or not, because that's not typically what we see in our structure. Anyways, those are my two points of thought on that.
Well, those are good points. Sue, could you read the recommendation and could we make
Yes.
that change?
That the Barry's Bay Recreation Committee update report is received as information, and that council supports the Barry's Bay Recreation Committee's outdoor rinks upcoming event in the absence of a quorum.
Okay, do I have a mover? Councillor Schulis, and I'll second. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. All right, the next item is a recreation update, and Hannah, I'll turn this one over to you.
Great. I have a bit of a laundry list. Is the format, like, should I read kind of one paragraph and pause for comment, or do you want me to go through the whole thing?
I would read each item and then pause for comment, and we'll move on if there are no comments from there.
Perfect. So my first item there is the arena reopening and the ice resurfacer wrap. Yesterday, we reopened to hockey and rentals. So it's great to be back. The restrictions are lifted. I believe it's 50% occupation for things like fitness classes, and then hockey is back as well. And then on here, I kind of have it as, ice resurfacer wrap coming soon. Since I wrote the report, the resurfacer wrap has been installed. It looks great. You might have seen, we posted about it on social media and stuff like that. So that is up and running. We have advertisements from 2 local companies, and we also have a nod to minor hockey and the skating club. The cost of the wrap will be covered by the advertisers at the end of year 2, since it is a 3-year commitment. So,
okay, that's great. No, I saw it on social media. It looks great. Okay, any comments on that item? Okay, let's move on to above and beyond.
great. So the CAO and I had a conversation about needing a recognition program here in the township. So we did create the Above and Beyond program. So it's, volunteers, people doing paid work. Nothing is too big or too small. Anyone who goes above and beyond in any way, shape, or form. So someone will be selected monthly. We have a form that people can fill out online and nominate someone, and they'll be recognized for their efforts on the municipal corner, the township tidbits newsletter, and on social media pages.
Okay, no, I think that's a great idea. I think it's good to do it each month and keep our numerous volunteers who do so much work in the news. Are there any questions on that? Okay, March break programming.
Great. So we have chatted with Little Ray's Reptile Zoo to bring educational family program to the arena on March 19th, which is the final Saturday of March break. They'll bring 8 animals, they'll put on a presentation, and the total cost is $639.90 plus tax, with a chunk of that being mileage costs. And we're hoping to recoup part of the cost by charging $3 a person to attend the event. And we are I'll note, we're also looking if local groups are interested in sponsoring the cost. Yeah, we're open to having someone reach out to me for sure.
Okay. Any questions about March break? Okay. Next item, Barry's Bay Rec Committee.
Yeah, I apologize. That's kind of half a thought, unfortunately, and I ended up moving it to a separate report. So we can just skip that one, and I'll go to grant updates if that's okay.
Yep.
Perfect. So the last time I chatted about grant updates, I had brought up the Green Municipal Fund, and we've decided to shelve that for now. We were looking at adding LED lights to community centers, but that technically falls under a different stream of grant, which is very little of it funding and most of it a loan. So because we're we're just going to shelve that one for now because we do have a lot going on at the arena anyways, but we do have quotes ready should other funding opportunities come up for modifications of things like the lights. I've also applied for the Canada Summer Jobs and Ontario Summer Experience Program just last week. So we're starting to think about summer employment. So all of those have been submitted.
It's great. It's nice to be thinking of summer.
Mhm.
All right, so that's the end of the report. If there are no further comments, Sue, could you read the recommendation?
Yes, through the chair, that this recreation report is accepted as information and that council approves the expense of $639.90 plus HST on children's programming for March break.
I'll move this one and seconded by Mayor Love. Any further discussion? If not, then we can go to the vote. All in favor? Carried. Okay, thank you, Hannah. Your next report is economic development update.
So we're planning to bring back the Artisan Festival this year. It hasn't been here for 2 years because of COVID. So we're looking to go ahead on the 9th of July at Railway Station Park, and we're hoping to put out applications soon. And I've been chatting with Renfrew County for support and feedback. I actually have a chat with them tomorrow just to make sure I know what I'm doing and we can make sure we kind of put on a successful event. I am hoping to lower the booth price. It was $80 in 2019, and I'm hoping to lower it to $60 just in recognition of the challenges COVID-19 has brought on to small businesses and local makers. So I'm looking for support on that change.
Okay. Do you have you received any interest or any indication of how much support there is out there at this point?
Not yet. No, I haven't made it public that we're proceeding with the event this year. I've just been chatting with some folks at Renfrew County about it and with the CAO, but I haven't actually done any outreach with the public or anything on that.
Okay, good. The MV monthly business update.
Yeah, so I've created a monthly newsletter to share news, updates, grants, and funding information and any relevant other information with Madawaska Valley businesses. Previously, I would get emails about funding or, surveys, anything that's relevant to MV businesses. I would just forward it or share it with a note to an email list of MV businesses. And I just was concerned that perhaps they weren't being read or, it's a little inconsistent if there was 3 emails in 1 week and 0 in another week. So instead, I've compiled non-timely information into a monthly newsletter that everybody will go out, that will go out at the end of each month. I did send yesterday the January letter. So
I think it's a good idea. I think it's probably far more effective than numerous emails going out. They tend to get lost. Any other comments? All right, if not, then Sue, could you read the recommendation, please?
Yes, through the chair, that the economic development report is received as information and that council accepts the lower booth price for the 2022 Artisan Festival in recognition of the challenges COVID-19 has brought to small local businesses and artisans.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Poplinski and seconded by Councillor Schulis. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Hannah. And I think the next item is on heritage designation is actually Sue's report. So Sue.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, it's telling me that I'm not. Okay, so this is just for information. One of the action items coming from the December 15th committee meeting was for me to bring back what information and what process is needed when we review and we consider heritage designation requirements. At the time, Mayor Love had advised that in 2018 she had done a lot of research as it pertained to where the designations were, if we had applied for designations, had gone through all of the minutes and kindly shared that background information, which was quite lengthy. That was done, and I've provided council and attached it to this report. Hannah went on to online to get the actual heritage designation guidelines to give us a starting point.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Mayor Love.
Thank you, Chair. You have to love the fact that you can read things 400 times and you think you've got everything correct. I'd just like to note when I reread this report that there's a mistake in it. Freely admit I make them. So if you look on page 45, which is the first page of my report, where after it says CNR water tank, it says on February 7th, 1997. It's a typo. It should be 1977.
Okay.
And once you read that, then the rest of it makes sense because it's chronological. So I can update that and resubmit it to the CAO, but just note that this originally started in 1977. And
Thank
I
you.
literally picked that up when I read it again this past weekend. So anyways, thank you.
Well, other than that, it's a very good report. So, are there any comments on this? It's great information. Councillor Schulis.
To you, Mr. Chair, not on this report. I think the report is really good, but I just wanted, before you close your committee, I forgot to ask or comment on how we can advertise this outdoor rink contest. I know we have many different avenues to do it because, again, the committee cannot spend money until they do have a committee to put together. There was discussion of getting it into the newspaper, like the poster and so on, but that costs money and you have to have approval. But maybe we've gone past that unless they do get somebody to step up and create this committee. How can the township help? I know we do have, I think this is on our Facebook page. Is there any other place that we could put this poster on to help them out? I know even the post, everything has been done by volunteers, everything's been put together. So what is it that we can do? That's all I'm asking here. Thank you.
It's funny, I've seen it on Facebook page, I believe in our site, and I think also on Instagram. I think some of the things maybe we could do, or the committee could do, is share it on to, there are a lot of local Facebook pages now, such as the Combermere group, the Wilno group, there's a number of various Bay, ensuring that it gets out onto all those platforms would really, really help, and sharing it to all of those. But I think anything we can do to help at this time, because they really don't have a committee, is good, whether it can go in the newspaper, that sort of thing. But I think any method of social media that we can use, or they can use, would be, there's no cost to that. And I think they should be very active there. I think it'll be effective for them.
Yeah, and I totally agree. As much as we can get it out there. I know last year what happened was they did get it into the newspaper. And what happens when you get it in the newspaper, there's a story written about it. And, what is it all about? And when this is happening? And now, February 13th is the deadline as far as people submitting it. But the judging will not happen until Family Day weekend, which I think is the 21st. Is that right, Hannah? Is it 20th or 21st? Oh, I don't want to put you on the spot, but
I can grab it real quick.
Yeah. So the thing here is.
Oh, 21st is Family Day. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, and that's when the judges are going to come and the winner. So hopefully we can get this engaged. I think the committee has put the effort into it. We need to somehow help them a lot, because it just it seems like right now we only have a couple of weeks left to promote this. Thank you very much.
Mayor Love.
Thank you, Chair. I absolutely agree with Councillor Schulis on that. I'd just like to bring us back to the question of the heritage designations and requirements. I think it's important that we seek some input from some of our heritage groups in regards to this, and specifically, I am not certain if there's still a Barry's Bay Heritage Committee, but there used to be, but also the station keepers. I'd really like to see some thoughts from those groups on the possibility of council looking at some form of heritage designation for the wooden water tower, and what, certainly they've got a lot of expertise in their group in regards to this, and they could maybe make a recommendation on what would be reasonable to designate in order to ensure that there's some protection. Also, I'd love to hear their thoughts on the railway station, and is there something specific about the railway station that they would like to see designated again in order to protect that facility as basically a historical building in our community. So rather than just drop this again, I'd really like to see it moved forward. It doesn't have to move at lightning speed, but I would like to see some input from key members of our community that are engaged in preserving these historical spaces and in promoting them. Thank you.
I think that's a good idea. I think rather than just dropping it, if we could, somehow contact those key groups and see what input they have. It's an excellent point. All right, is any other comments? If not,
Hannah has through the chair.
oh, Hannah, sorry.
No worries. I did just want to note something that came across my desk last week, just so council's aware that minor hockey is going to be looking for fundraiser options. They usually do the Heritage Cup, and of course, we're not having that this year, so they've lost that major fundraiser. They did suggest potentially doing something on Canada Day, like a beer garden at Lakeshore Park. So that was their suggestion, and it's something that the CAO and I are going to sit and chat with the president of the Barry's Bay Minor Hockey Association to kind of see what some options are. So I just wanted to make you all aware of that.
Okay, thank you. All right. Sorry, all my papers disappeared. I have a dog. That took them. So we don't have any correspondence or information, and no unfinished business. So I will hand the chair back to Mayor Love.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I even remembered to unmute myself. We're getting good at this. All right, and we don't have any planning matters today, so our next committee is Finance and Administration. Now, as I mentioned in the amending of the agenda, we'll move the vaccine policy testing requirements. There will be a brief discussion in camera, followed by it becoming, what number was it? 17.1. When we come out of in camera, we will have public discussion on it. So we will move to correspondence and information. We have the letter from the Federal Minister of Agriculture dated January 25th, 2022, regarding Ontario Wildlife Damage Compensation Program. And I think that's just to let us know that the province has upped the compensation from $30 to $50 per claim. Any comments from council on that? Okay. Seeing none. Next item is a letter from the Office of the Solicitor General dated January 21st, 2022 regarding security and prisoner transportation. Any comments on that? Again, seeing none. Our next item is an email from AMO Communications dated January 5th, 2022, and regarding AMO policy update, New Year calls to action, and other issues of municipal concern. So let me find this. There, got it. Okay. One of the calls to action in this is the joint and several liability issue, which continues to be unaddressed, something that unaddressed by the province, something that municipal organizations are pushing for them to complete their review and to address this issue as one of the factors that municipalities believe is affecting some of the massive increases in insurance costs that we are seeing over the last few years. At the Roma conference this past week, a week ago, I'm trying to remember who spoke to it. I think it was Minister Clark. He stated that they weren't seeing evidence that joint and several liability was causing the increase in insurance costs. So I know AMO is going to be responding to that because municipalities firmly believe this is one of the factors, being found 1% liable for an issue, and then ending up paying the majority of the costs has got to have an impact on municipal insurance. So this is still ongoing. AMO has asked that municipal councils provide a resolution of support for the continued press to ensure that the province addresses joint and several liability. And I'm wondering if I could ask that staff would, I'm sure there is a sample resolution about, if we could bring a resolution that council could support to the next regular council meeting. I think that might be a good first step to identifying that we agree that there is still a problem and it does need to be addressed. Sue?
Through the chair, if I may read the proposed resolution to do that.
Okay.
Whereas the ability to provide those services is negatively impacted by exponentially rising insurance costs, and whereas one driver of rising insurance costs is the legal principle of joint and several liability, which assigns disproportionate liability to municipalities for an incident relative to their responsibility for it. And whereas the Government of Ontario has the authority and responsibility for the legal framework of joint and several liability. And whereas the Premier of Ontario committed to review the issue in 2018 with a view to helping municipal governments manage their risks and costs. And whereas the Association of Municipalities of Ontario on behalf of municipal governments has provided recommendations in this source document to align municipal liability with the proportionate responsibility for incidents and capping awards. Now therefore be it resolved that the Township of Madawaska Valley does support AMO's recommendations, and further be it resolved that the Township of Madawaska Valley does hereby call on the Attorney General of Ontario to work with municipal governments to put forward a plan of action to address joint and several liability before the end of the government's current term, so that municipalities can continue to offer high quality services to their communities. And that is the proposed resolution from AMO.
Okay, thank you, Sue. The only reason why I asked for it to be brought to the next council meeting is that we can approve this motion, but the final approval will come as a part of the minutes of council and committee meeting at the next council meeting. So it doesn't matter. If council would like to go forward with the motion as read, I'd need a mover for that motion. Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councillor Poplinski.
Just a comment regarding the reply that we got back from the Ontario government. I'd like to take issue with that because in the report that came from the county in their meeting, I think it was the 27th of January, and they talked about the escalating costs of insurance, and they specifically referenced that particular issue that's causing all the trouble. And I just find it hard to believe that the previous government said they were going to do something. They studied it. We got a new government and they're doing the same thing. And now they've come out with a situation where they're not even admitting to it. So I think we need strong action, and I encourage what we're doing right here, because something needs to get done. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or discussion by council? Seeing none, then I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that's carried. All right, so that'll come as a recommendation and we'll be able to send that off after our next council meeting. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. All right, no, this is definitely something that we do need to continue to push on, especially as we're coming to the end of the provincial term of office. We want to make sure it doesn't get lost. All right, our final item, and this was provided to you, to council, as information to begin with, but at some point I think I would like to plan on the agenda an actual discussion about this item. But it takes time to get there. So this item 12.2.4 is Opportunities for rural Ontario in a post-COVID world. This is a plan of action of the Roma board. We commissioned this paper in 2021. There was considerable consultation of local municipal leaders, economic development officers, community members, businesses. There was consultation in order to come to some understanding about how we think our world has been changed by COVID in rural Ontario, and what we recommend that we work on going forward to ensure that all of rural Ontario becomes a successful and vibrant component of the Ontario economy. There's the key thing that I think when I've read this paper many times, because we literally, as a board, the Roma board, worked on this diligently for many months. The key thing that opened my eyes, just to start out with, is looking at how we're going to define rural Ontario and how rural Ontario actually sees itself as differently from the way that it has traditionally been looked at. Traditionally, we've been working with something that has been nicknamed the spoke and hub model, basically, where major urban centers are the hub and all of rural Ontario are the spokes, and they all feed into the hub. That model isn't working for rural Ontario, because in reality, what we discovered through our work and our efforts and a lot of the data that we worked with the ROI, the Rural Ontario Institute, to get data for this report. We've discovered that what we believe better describes the relationship between rural Ontario and urban communities is this network model. And I got to tell you, the moment that our consultant put a picture of the network model up for us to look at, I went, oh, it was like, oh my goodness, this is it. This is what's wrong. We're not a spoken hub. We don't just feed into urban areas. Rural communities are interconnected. Everything from our hamlets and our villages and our towns and some of our smaller cities, we're all interconnected. And if we think of ourselves as a network, then there's an important strength that can be drawn from that, and resiliency. We're not just here to support urban communities. We're all connected in this networky way, and a lot of urban communities now, you'll note even in the picture on the network model, urban communities also contain rural areas. And if you think of the city of Ottawa, this is a key example here, where you have a very urbanized central core, but Ottawa as a city extends out till almost Arnprior, and it has 80% of it is rural communities, rural towns and villages, and rural lands. One of the challenges Roma faced in doing this paper, our researcher discovered that you can't separate the rural contribution to the economy in some place like the city of Ottawa. It's interconnected in the way that we collect data. So the way that we collect data has to be changed in order to fully recognize how rural communities are contributing to the economy of this province, because we're missing out on a lot of it. So we did a lot of work with these sorts of concepts, and we had, as I said, plenty of discussion and looked at where our opportunities and our challenges lie. And so the Roma board is going to be focusing on these opportunities and these challenges going forward. This is sort of like doing a strategic plan in a very unusual way, because what we're getting out of this is a work plan, a plan of action moving forward for the board in order to better represent rural communities and also to better understand what we contribute. So you'll see that there are key themes that we've identified for a vibrant future, and these really resonate. Obviously, as we all know, digital connectivity is crucial. We've been saying that before COVID. We've been saying it very strongly during COVID. We continue to recognize that's a key component of the success of rural Ontario. Something that's risen it's just a shooting star is housing affordability. And that includes everything from the variety of housing that's available in rural Ontario to the fact that with what we've seen with COVID is an out-migration that is actually pricing people who live in rural Ontario out of being able to afford to live in rural Ontario and to own a home, out of being able to afford rental accommodations in rural Ontario. And if you don't have housing, it's really hard to grow your economy. If you don't have housing, it's really hard to have a new business come into town and get workers and bring in people to contribute to your community. If you don't have housing, it's really difficult for young people to stay in your community and raise their families there because there's nowhere to live. And we're really seeing this very much so. I know I heard in my zone meeting at Roma, I heard from some of the members that this is one of the most difficult things they're facing is the lack of housing in their communities. Access to services, critically important, which includes healthcare, and transportation, the ability to get around, the ability to be provided with the basic services that we need, education. Before COVID, so many schools were being closed in rural Ontario. How are we going to ensure we have access? Workforce development is the fourth theme that we're working on, because we need to attract people. We actually have jobs, but we don't have people to engage in those jobs. We have people who want to start businesses, but they can't get enough employees. We have a desperate need for tradespeople in rural Ontario. So workforce development is super important. And then this key point that we need to have growth on our own terms as rural communities. So we want to approach this from a rural perspective and make sure that the focus that the province puts on us recognizes how rural communities can contribute to the overall economy. And one of the key ways, which was quite surprising, is looking at supply chains. Everyone up until now has been very busy globalizing their businesses and bringing things in just in time. What we're stating to the province and to the federal government is rural Ontario needs to be here just in case. Because as we've seen in COVID, when you can't get it from overseas, where do you get it from? And this is going to potentially cause there to be a good resurgence of businesses in rural communities. And finally, just one of the points that we learned through the delve into the data that our consultant did was that one of the biggest businesses that we have in rural Ontario is manufacturing. That was very surprising. I mean, most of us would have said it's agriculture, it might be forestry, but manufacturing. So the manufacturing sector actually is located mainly in rural Ontario. So what a great opportunity to ensure that we've reinforced our supply chains and we don't ever have to go through a pandemic where we can't get key critical items because of globalization and an inability to ship them. So there's a lot of things going on in this paper. It's a big body of work. And when we presented it at the conference, I think it got a very positive response because it was hitting some of the key notes that a lot of rural representatives are worried about and unsure about how to move forward with. So I'd like to just leave this in council's lap and let you guys read it and think about it and think about how it relates to our community, because I would at some point like to have maybe at our next council and committee meeting or the one after that even, some feedback from my own council about what you think about this and whether you feel there's something that Roma has missed the mark on, or is there something that is resonating well with you. And to us, it's very important as a board to get your feedback. So I know that was a lengthy introduction of something I'm asking you to just go away and think on, and we'll come back to it. But I wanted to get that started with council because, as I said, your feedback as rural representatives is super important to the Roma board. So thank you for letting me talk on that for a bit. And I just wondered, is there any comments or questions from council? Councillor Wilmer.
Just quickly, yeah, no, I think that's a good idea to give us time to go through it. I did breeze through it, and it's I think it's a very good report. There's a lot in it though, and so I would like to comment on it more fully at the next meeting or whenever we bring it forward. But I think it's a good report. Very interesting.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. And I think I would actually give it 2 months, so maybe bring it back in April at the council and committee meeting, if that's okay, just for your input, because I can then bring that back to the board. Any other comments? Are we good with that?
Fine.
Okay, all right. So I'll just ask that the CAO bring this back just for some discussion and for your input in April at our council and committee meeting. All right, thank you. Unfinished business. Oh, okay. We have the action items list. Was there any questions on the action items list for staff? Okay, I'm not seeing any. You also received the request, comments, complaints for 2019 to the current day. A list of those. And Sue, could you just explain, where did that list come from exactly?
I think I'll let the deputy clerk
okay.
speak to that. It comes from our iCompass platform and what we're using to address complaints.
Okay, now I'm not sure, Gwen, do you have sound and can you hear us, Gwen?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
I wasn't sure because she texted me that she was having difficulties.
Okay, so basically what it is, it's the same, it works the same as the action item. So if a request or a complaint or compliment is sent to info at Madawaska Valley and or on our iCompass platform through the website, it actually, so if you send us a complaint, you will get back an email response with a number on it saying, and it assigns it a number to that complaint. I get copied and Gwen forwards it, the deputy clerk forwards it to the staff, whether if it's a roads complaint or bylaw or finance question, and then it lists it and the staff member has to go back in to identify if that has been completed or addressed or if it's still pending. I think you'll notice that was one of the suggestions in the operational service delivery review as well, that we have ways to track all of that in some of our service delivery. So we may be looking for that platform as well.
Okay.
So there, I think we have Gwen now.
Sorry, my mic chooses when it wants to work. Yeah, so just to add to what the CAO said was that I've started advertising that this feature is on our website, and I've moved it to the home page, and we're just it's under how do I request a service. Also, we're going to add an extra tab, and I'm not sure, it might be there now, an extra tab right on the home page. So if somebody wants to comment on the services of the municipality, it's quite easy to do. And I've also advertised it in the municipal corner and in our township tidbits so that we're accessible to people that want to comment.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any comments or discussion by council? Any questions on it? Councillor Wilmer.
No, I think it's a really good way of tracking all this information. I think what Gwen is doing now, making it more, I think, again, that was a recommendation of the operational review about making our complaint process more visible or more. And so I think putting the extra tab on Facebook page would really, really help. Yeah. So no, I think it's great.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Just all the compliments will be forwarded to the Above and Beyond program.
Okay. All right.
We do get to that point. We do get compliments as well, whether they're often I'll get them through info. So we're not always being criticized.
But
Councillor Wilmer.
a lot of these aren't actually, I mean, some of them are, but a lot of them are just pointing out things where there's a deficiency, and it's not really a complaint. It's just looking for, or just letting people know that it should be looked at. So I don't really see that as a complaint. I see that as something that's positive and proactive.
But I
Absolutely.
think, if I may speak to it as well, I think on the side of operational service delivery, what it highlighted is that us being able to track the type of complaints that we get allows us to, see which department possibly is, having more service delivery issues and or concerns. So it will help us on that side too.
Exactly. And it's super important for the public to know that, you may be upset about something in your neighborhood, but we may not be aware of it as a municipality. If you've got a major issue with a pothole, perhaps it just hasn't been noticed. So let us know. I mean, we can address the complaint or the concern if we get it. Don't just get angry and bitch about it. Please let us know so that we have an opportunity to address it and hopefully fix the problem. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Gwen, for
Welcome.
providing us with this information. I think we're accepting it all as information under unfinished business. So if there's nothing further on those items at this point, I think we are at the end of standing committee portion of the meeting. So at this point, we're entering the regular council portion of the agenda. Now I'm looking at the time. Our in-camera session is to start at 1 o'clock. So I'd like to see if we could maybe, I don't know if we're going to get all the way there, in time to have lunch. I'm just, Sue, your thoughts?
Well, I do know if you wanted the manager of planning to sit in on the bylaws in case you had any questions. I would prefer if we can possibly go through those and have a small lunch break before the 1 o'clock.
Okay. All right. Well, I will do my best, but I would like to give council at least a half an hour for lunch.
Yes.
So I'd very much like to, be tied up by 12:30 if we possibly can, and then move into in-camera at 1.
Sounds great.
Okay, so that's the plan. I haven't forgot lunch. I know, I know sometimes you guys think I do. All right, so our next item is confirmation of the minutes. We have the regular council meeting minutes of January 11th, 2022. The recommendation is that the regular council meeting minutes for January 11th, 2022 are approved as presented. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Any errors or omissions on these minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Just 2 points. The report from Pynchon regarding options for waste disposal or expanding Bark Lake or a new landfill, it was to come to this meeting. I'm assuming it's coming to the next one, the next council and committee. Is that correct, Sue?
I wasn't sure if Hillary was going to chime in there. To my knowledge, it was to come back to the council and committee, yes.
Okay,
The
so
next
hopefully the next one. Also the condensed building condition reports, that was something, these are things I noticed when I was reading the minutes. Are they coming to the next council and committee meeting?
Yes, they are.
Okay, thank you. If there's nothing further on that, then we'll move into bylaws. Bylaw 2021-111 regarding the Shoreline road allowance closure and disposition along Paw Lake in front of Lot 21, Concession 1, designated as Part 1 on 49R-198899 in Geographic Township of Burns, Cope and Smart, COP-2021-02. The recommendation is that bylaw 2021-111, being a bylaw to provide for the closing and stopping up of part of the shore road allowance along Paw Lake in front of Part Broken Lot 21, Concession 1 in the Geographic Township of Burns in the Township of Madawaska Valley in the County of Renfrew, being part of PIN 57548-0180LT, and for the sale thereof to the abutting landowners be given third and final reading this first day of February 2022. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Is there any discussion on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Next is bylaw 2021-112 regarding the Shoreline road allowance closures and disposition along Trout Lake in front of Lot 35, Concession 6, designated as Parts 1 and 2 on 49R-19864 in the geographic township of Sherwood, Olszewski, OLS-2021-04, and Tokarczyk, TOK, sorry, my bad. -2021-05. The recommendation is that bylaw 2021-112, being a bylaw to provide for the closing and stopping up of part of the road allowance along Trout Lake in front of Lot 35, Concession 6 in the geographic township of Sherwood in the township of Madawaska Valley in the county of Renfrew, being part of PIN 57565-0315 LT, and for the sale thereof to the abutting landowners be given third and final reading this first day of February 2022. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Poplinski. Is there any discussion on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Next is bylaw 2022-06 regarding condominium agreement, Cumbermere Lodge Limited. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-06, being a bylaw to authorize the entering into and the execution of a condominium agreement between Cumbermere Lodge Limited and the Corporation of the Township of Madawaska Valley, be given first and second reading this first day of February 2022. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Is there any discussion on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-06 be given third and final reading this first day of February 2022. Could I get a mover? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Poplinski. Any final discussion on this bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Next is bylaw 2022-07 regarding council remuneration for 2022. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-07, being a bylaw to provide for the remuneration of the members of council of the Corporation of the Township of Madawaska Valley, be given first and second reading this first day of February 2022. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Is there any discussion on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-07 be given third and final reading this first day of February 2022. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Any final discussion on this bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Next is bylaw 2022-08, employee remuneration 2022 wage grid. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-08, being a bylaw regulating the appointment, duties, and remuneration of township officers and non-unionized staff, be given first and second reading this first day of February 2022. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Is there any discussion on this bylaw? Councillor Poplinski.
Yes, Mayor Love, I'm just wondering, in light of our recent review of services, and I would suggest that we hold this in abeyance, or we do the first and second and not the third reading of it because of changes that could. And I know we're not changing these every month, so there's over the years, I think we have a look at it every year or whatever, and there's been some significant changes that perhaps we could be making, and I would like to see this delayed until that's dealt with. Thank you.
Any other comments or discussion by council? Okay, so I think the change, maybe I'll refer to the CAO. The changes that we have been making in the organizational structure, are they reflected in this? Now, are they reflected in the wage grid that was provided to council by email because the one attached to the bylaw did not have all the changes in it. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the wage grid that you have now is reflective of all of the new positions that were created and approved in the new job descriptions as well, and the new job titles as well. It was also the step 8 and step 10, I believe, or step 8. There was a step that was not populated that was approved to be populated. And so it's merely to accept the cost of living that is reflective of the same from the cost of living for the members of council that you've just approved.
Councillor Wilmer.
I can't hear you.
Sorry. There
Sorry.
we go.
So with that, with the new ones that you sent us, there won't be any other changes, or there shouldn't be any other changes at this point, right?
No.
No. So it would probably make sense to give a third reading today then. Just a thought.
Okay. All right. So I've verified that it does have all the changes that council has approved on it. Does that address your concern, Councillor Plinsky?
Yes, as long as, if I may, I
Mhm.
think you seem to have lost you there.
Okay.
Okay, back. It seems to address some of my concerns. It's just there hasn't been a whole lot of discussion and about if we take our report seriously, our service review, and we want to make changes, it's been suggested that we have to wait a period of time, and that's my concern. There's many changes that I'm not talking about 66 recommendations, but I'm talking about the ones that were top priority, and it certainly involves personnel, positions, wage grid, and so on. So if we're approving the wage grid, if that's what we're doing, then I'm in disagreement with how we're doing it. I feel that we have another meeting coming up on Thursday, which is going to enlighten us more significantly, I think. And I would like to see it put off until then to deal with this matter. Thank you.
Sue?
Just wanted to clarify, so if there was any changes that came out of the operational service delivery review as it pertained to the placement of an employee, this is just adding the cost of living to the ones that have been identified now. So it's the cost of living to the grid. It doesn't mean that you can't make changes if there was if you hired somebody else or if there was a change in position. This is just adding the cost of living to the full grid. And what we've done is any job title changes that had happened in the last few months, they've been identified and placed on that grid. So for example, if there was anybody that moved from one step to the other, that title change has been added on there. And it's to add the cost of living to it. It doesn't mean that council in the next 12 months can't, or 2 months can't make a change in those steps, but it's standardizing the cost of living. Is that correct, Amanda?
Amanda.
Yes, I apologize. I did miss that one job description or the title of the planning and building advisor. So I did send that to everybody involved, to Silas and Gwen, to ensure that that gets replaced. So that position title has been added to the appropriate band, and the payroll amounts have been reflected on the employees' personnel records. And I did include that additional band 8. So I've put in those numbers as directed by council, and move those positions, the operations manager, and then the new facilities positions have been added on there. So this just allows us to proceed with cost of living increases, and makes it easier. The sooner that we do it at the beginning of the year, it's less work. If there's any more personnel changes throughout the year, certainly we can bring the wage grid back for council's approval to see that, you know, if a job title changes or if a new position is added, once that's approved by council, then it would make sense to bring the wage grid back to reflect any of those changes. But again, it's council's decision how they wish to proceed.
So basically, we have a number of changes that council has already approved, and those are now implemented on this wage grid, but that doesn't
That's correct.
preclude council from making a change going forward at some point when if there is a change that needs to be made.
Right.
Okay, Councillor Poplinski.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Love. And the explanation by the treasurer, I think, is very valuable, and certainly I have no further objections at this time on this proceeding with that. But that gives me a lot more information than what I had in front of me, so that's great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Sue, did you want something further?
I did. I just wanted to add, so the deputy clerk just texted me. She was advised that there'd been some email issues that Councillor Poplinski was having. I guess some of the emails he hasn't received for a couple of days, so he may not have received, in fairness to Councillor Poplinski, that revised wage grid.
Okay, so that is in your email. We will get it to you. Maybe perhaps we could print a copy of it and put it in his mail slot, because I know we'll all be coming in for an agenda over the next day or two. So we'll make sure you get that, but it does include everything that council discussed. And that's probably why you weren't certain that the changes were there.
Yes, no, I can appreciate that.
Okay, so now that we've cleared that up, now if we could only clear up the technical issues and the emails, we'd be great. I'm just double checking, Sue. I got first and second. I got a mover and a seconder for the first reading, correct? Yep, that's where I'm at. Okay, so is there any further discussion on the recommendation? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-08 be given third and final reading this first day of February 2022. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Any final discussion on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Our next bylaw is bylaw 2022-09 regarding the Shoreline road allowance closure and disposition along Wadsworth Lake in front of lot 11, registered plan 269, designated as part 1 on 49R-19956 in the geographic township of Radcliffe, Cleghorn, CLE-2021-07. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-09, being a bylaw to provide for the closing and stopping up of part of an original shoreline road allowance along the shore of Wadsworth Lake, Radcliffe in front of lot 20, concession 11, township of Madawaska Valley in the county of Renfrew, and for the sale thereof to the abutting landowners be given first and second reading this first day of February 2022. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Is there any discussion on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-09 be given third and final reading this first day of February 2022.
Mayor Love,
I just noticed it. Sorry, yeah. I just noticed it. Noticed it. Oh goodness, noticed it. I just noticed, Mr. Lurbetsky. I lost my English there, Silas.
Resolution.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's just the first and second reading of the bylaw, so we need to hold the bus on the third reading.
Okay, I was just following my agenda, and you know, I'm soldiering on towards lunch, obviously. All right, so I withdraw that recommendation, Council. I will move on. Thank you very much for helping me not accidentally do something we shouldn't do. All right, we'll move on to bylaw 2020-10 regarding the interim tax levy for 2022. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-10, being a bylaw to provide for an interim tax levy and to provide for the payment of taxes and to provide for penalty and interest of 1 1/4%, be given first and second reading this first day of February 2022. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Is there any discussion on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-10 be given third and final reading this first day of February 2022. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Any final discussion on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Bylaw 2022-11 regarding acceptance of water meter installation, inspection, and maintenance services. Quotation number MV-2021-12, Welk Electric Limited. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-11, being a bylaw to authorize the acceptance of the water meter installation, inspection, and maintenance services, RFP MV 2021-12, dated October 7th, 2021, submitted by Welk Electric Limited, be given first and second reading this first day of February 2022. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Poplinski. Is there any discussion on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-11 be given third and final reading this first day of February 2022. Could I get a mover? Moved by Councillor Schulis, seconded by Councillor Poplinski. Any final discussion on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, so we've got through our bylaws, and I'm going to take us in camera, at which point we will take a lunch break and we will resume in camera at 1 o'clock. So the recommendation is that the meeting enters in camera session to discuss matters pertaining to personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, the security of the property of the municipality or local board, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, Ontario Municipal Act 2001, Chapter 25, Section 239, 2A, B, and C. Number 1 will be a presentation from St. Francis Memorial Hospital and Valley Manor regarding land purchase. And number 2 will be the vaccine policy, testing requirements, and return to work policy. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Poplinski.